I'm Elise Moreau, 30 years old, an up-and-coming architect in Paris. My designs, sleek, modern homes with clean lines and sustainable materials, are the kind that make people stop and dream of living in them. I've poured my heart into my career, sketching late into the night, perfecting every detail to create spaces that feel like sanctuaries. But no matter how many awards I win or how many clients sing my praises, my family, especially my younger sister, Camille Dubois, a 26-year-old freelance dancer with big dreams but little discipline, has a way of making me feel like I'm nothing. My parents, Henri and Margot Dubois, used to be my biggest cheerleaders. I can still hear my mother's enthusiastic applause when I won my first design competition at school, her face glowing with pride. My father, a retired police inspector, would show off my blueprints to neighbors, boasting about his future starchitect. But everything changed when Camille was born. From that moment, the spotlight shifted to her, and I was left standing in the shadows. Camille didn't need to earn the attention, she just commanded it. With her effortless charm and dramatic flair, she soaked up every ounce of affection, leaving none for me. As a child, I didn't understand why my parents' eyes always lingered on her, her messy pirouettes in the living room, her half-hearted attempts at school plays. I tried to claw my way back into their focus. I studied relentlessly, earning top marks at the prestigious École des Beaux-Arts, securing scholarships, and even exhibiting my designs at local galleries. I thought maybe if I worked harder, shone brighter, they'd notice me again. But they didn't. Camille was the star, always, whether she deserved it or not. I remember one moment that cut deeper than most. 16, I'd been selected to present my first architectural model at a regional competition. It was a miniature of a sustainable community center, a project I'd spent months perfecting. The night before the event, I overheard my parents planning a surprise party, not for me, but for Camille, who'd landed a minor role in a local dance recital. My achievement was barely mentioned at dinner. Instead, they gushed over Camille's natural talent. I swallowed my disappointment, but it festered. Over the years, I pushed myself harder, not just for success, but to prove I was worthy of their attention. Yet, every milestone, graduating top of my class, landing my first job at a renowned firm, was overshadowed by Camille's theatrics. She had a knack for stealing the stage. Once, during a family gathering to celebrate my acceptance into a master's program, Camille announced she was auditioning for a famous ballet company in Lyon. She didn't even get the part, but the evening became about her dreams, her potential. My parents hung on her every word while I sat there, my champagne flute untouched, feeling like a guest at my own celebration. It wasn't just neglect, it was as if I'd become invisible. Camille thrived on this dynamic, her lazy ambition fueled by their unwavering support. And my parents? They let her get away with everything, blind to how it tore me apart. Looking back, I see now how their favoritism shaped me, not into the daughter they wanted, but into someone determined to carve her own path, no matter the cost. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories, they're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. Camille had a gift for stealing the spotlight without even trying. She didn't need accolades or hard work. Her mere presence, those wide, theatrical gestures, and that disarming smile drew every eye in the room. It was as if she'd been born with a magnetic pull, one that left me, Elise Moreau, scrambling to reclaim even a sliver of my parents' attention. I threw myself into my studies, acing exams at the École des Beaux-Arts, securing a coveted scholarship for architectural design, and showcasing my work at Parisian art galleries. My professors praised my innovative blueprints, clients marveled at my ability to blend form and function. Yet, no matter how many late nights I spent hunched over drafting tables or how many awards lined my shelf, it was never enough. In my parents' eyes, Camille was the sun, and I was just a distant star barely flickering in her orbit. I'll never forget my 18th birthday, a day I thought might finally be mine. My parents had reserved a table at Le Bistro Lumière, my favorite restaurant in Montmartre, with its candlelit ambience and views of the Seine. I wore a new dress, a deep emerald green that made me feel like I could take on the world. For once, I dared to hope the evening would revolve around me. Halfway through dessert, as I was about to blow out the candles on my lavender-infused cake, my father's phone rang. It was the police. Camille, then 14, had been caught spray painting graffiti on the storefront of a boutique in the Marais. She and her friends had scrawled crude designs in neon paint, giggling as they defaced the glass. Her friends fled, but Camille, ever the drama queen, stayed behind, caught red-handed. My father, Henri, a retired police inspector with connections across Paris, made a few calls. By the time he and my mother returned with Camille in tow, the party was ruined. The other guests had left, the candles had melted into wax puddles, and I sat alone, staring at my uneaten cake while my parents lectured Camille in the kitchen. "She's just a kid," they said, as if her age excused everything. I cut the cake in silence, the knife trembling in my hand. Pattern continued, each incident chipping away at me. But the final straw came when I was 21, fresh off signing a contract with Atelier Laurent, one of Paris's top architectural firms. It was a dream come true, a chance to work on projects that could reshape the city's skyline. I rushed home to our family's apartment in Saint-Germain, bursting with excitement to share the news. I'd envisioned a toast, maybe even a rare moment of pride from my parents. Instead, I walked into chaos. Camille, only 17, stood in the living room, arm in arm with her boyfriend Julien, a scruffy street musician who buskied near the Notre Dame. With a flourish, she announced their engagement, flashing a cheap ring as if it were a Cartier diamond. My news was forgotten. The evening turned into an impromptu engagement party, with my parents fawning over Camille's bold choice and Julien's artistic soul. I tried to speak up, my voice shaking with frustration, but my mother waved me off. "Elise, don't be so petty," she said, her tone sharp. "You should be happy for your sister. This is her moment." My father echoed her, his eyes fixed on Camille as if I weren't even in the room. I felt like I'd been slapped. That night, something in me broke. I couldn't keep living in Camille's shadow, playing the supporting role in a story that always centered her. I packed a suitcase, left a note saying I needed space, and moved into a tiny studio near the Bastille. I cut contact with my family, no calls, no visits, no explanations. It was drastic, but necessary. I couldn't breathe in a home where I was an afterthought. Camille thrived on this dynamic, her lazy ambition fed by our parents' blind devotion. She didn't care who she hurt to stay in the spotlight, and they let her get away with it every time. Walking away was my rebellion, my refusal to be invisible. But as I stepped into my new life, a part of me wondered if I'd ever escape the weight of their favoritism, or if Camille would find a way to pull me back into her chaos. 9 years have passed since I walked away from my family, cutting all ties with a resolve that felt both liberating and heavy. I haven't spoken to them since, no calls, no letters, no fleeting reunions over café au lait. Through the grapevine, whispers from distant relatives painted a picture of Camille's unraveling life. Her so-called engagement to Julien, the street musician, collapsed mere weeks after her dramatic announcement. It was just another performance, a classic Camille stunt to steal the spotlight. No surprise there. She always craved attention, and our parents, Henri and Margot, were all too eager to indulge her. I heard she tried to launch a dance studio in Montparnasse, a grandiose venture she boasted would rival the Paris Opera Ballet. Failed spectacularly, mismanaged, underfunded, and abandoned within a year, leaving her drowning in debt. True to form, my parents swooped in, bailing her out with their savings, smoothing over her mistakes as if they were minor missteps. Meanwhile, I was done being the invisible daughter. I threw myself into my career, pouring every ounce of energy into my work as an architect. I took on extra projects, worked weekends, and saved every euro, determined to build a life that was mine alone. 2 years ago, that dream became reality. I bought a stunning villa on the outskirts of Paris, in a quiet village near Versailles. It was a gem, a 2-story haven with floor-to-ceiling windows, white stone walls, and a garden bursting with lavender that scented the air at dusk. It wasn't just a house, it was my sanctuary, a testament to every late night and every sacrifice. I'd walk through the garden, brushing my fingers against the purple blooms, and feel a peace I'd never known in my parents' home. This was my victory, my proof that I didn't need their approval to shine. But last week, that peace shattered. I'd just been featured on the cover of Architecture Vivante, a prestigious magazine, for my innovative sustainable housing project, a cluster of eco-friendly homes that caught the eye of Paris's elite. The article spread like wildfire, my name on every architect's lips. I knew Camille would hear about it. She always had a knack for sniffing out my successes, her jealousy as predictable as the Seine's flow. That night, I drove home under a starlit sky, humming with pride. But as I pulled into my driveway, my heart stopped. My villa, my sanctuary, was defaced. Harsh words like fraud and failure were spray-painted in blood red across the walls, the garage door, even the windows. My lavender garden was trampled, ceramic pots smashed into shards, their soil spilling like wounds. I stood frozen, my keys slipping from my hand, a storm of anger and heartbreak swirling inside me. Who could do this? Why? Then I noticed it, a trail of small, muddy footprints leading from the garden to the street. Women's shoes, delicate but deliberate. My blood ran cold. I rushed inside, my hands trembling as I pulled up the footage from the security cameras I'd installed to deter art thieves. My designs had attracted unwanted attention before. There, on the grainy screen, was Camille. She wore a dark hoodie, but her movements betrayed her, the familiar sway of her hips, the quick, paranoid glance over her shoulder. It was her, no doubt. The jagged, angry letters on the walls matched the spiteful notes she used to slip under my door as kids, taunting me with words like nobody or second best. This wasn't just vandalism. It was personal, a calculated strike to tear down everything I'd built. My first instinct was to call the police. Vandalism is a crime, and she deserved to face the consequences. But then I remembered my father's lingering influence. Though retired, Henri still had friends in high places, captains, detectives, even a commissioner who owed him favors. Camille had slipped through the cracks before, her misdeeds erased with a phone call. If I reported this, she'd walk free, smirking, while I was left to clean up her mess. The thought made my blood boil. No, this time I'd handle it my way. I grabbed my phone and documented everything, the hateful words dripping down the walls, the crushed lavender, the shattered pots, the footprints etched in the dirt. I filmed myself standing in front of the defaced villa, my voice steady despite the rage inside. "This is what happens when someone can't stand your success," I said, staring into the lens. "My own sister did this out of jealousy because she's always needed to be the star." I uploaded the video to my social media, along with the security footage, captioning it, "This is what happens when someone can't handle your light." Proof included. I didn't name Camille outright, but anyone who knew our family could connect the dots. My relatives, old friends, even former classmates, they'd recognize her silhouette, her handwriting, her spite. I hit post, my heart pounding, knowing this would change everything. Within hours, the internet exploded. Shares, likes, and comments flooded in, strangers and acquaintances alike outraged on my behalf. "Who does this to their own sister?" one comment read. Another, "She's unhinged." I felt a strange mix of vindication and dread. I'd exposed Camille, but I knew she wouldn't go down quietly. And somewhere, deep down, I braced for the storm I'd just unleashed, wondering how far she'd go to claw her way back into the spotlight. Posts spread like wildfire across the internet, a digital inferno I hadn't anticipated. Within hours, it racked up hundreds of shares, furious comments, and messages of support from friends, colleagues, and even strangers I'd never met. My inbox overflowed with notifications, architects I'd worked with, old classmates from École des Beaux-Arts, and distant cousins who'd long stayed silent. They called Camille jealous, toxic, even a disgrace. The outrage was palpable, and for the first time I felt seen. But it wasn't just sympathy. People were digging deeper, unearthing Camille's sordid history. Former friends from her dance circle came forward with stories of betrayal. How she'd borrowed thousands of euros for her failed studio and never paid them back. How she'd sabotaged a rival dancer's audition by tampering with her costume. And most chilling, how she'd been linked to a drug deal at a notorious nightclub in Pigalle. One comment stopped me cold. Someone posted a screenshot of a text from Camille, bragging that she dodged a police raid thanks to Papa's connections. My post hadn't just exposed her vandalism. It had torn the veil off the entire system of favoritism and cover-ups that my parents, especially my father, Henri, had built around her. I was overwhelmed but emboldened. For years, I'd been the silent one, swallowing my pain while Camille basked in her chaos. Now the world was seeing her for who she was and, by extension, the family dynamic that enabled her. But the drama was far from over. 3 nights after the post went viral, I was outside my villa, scrubbing the last traces of red paint from the front door under the glow of a lantern. The lavender garden was still a mess, its broken pots a painful reminder of Camille's spite. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of rain, when the doorbell rang incessantly, a shrill demand that echoed through the quiet village. I wiped my hands on my overalls and peered through the peephole. There stood Camille, her face twisted with rage, her tattered coat flapping in the wind. Her dancer's grace was gone, replaced by a desperate, feral energy. "Take the post down, Elise!" she screamed, pounding on the door. "You're ruining my life." I gripped the handle, keeping the door firmly shut. "You ruined my home!" I shot back, my voice icy despite the adrenaline surging through me. "You don't get to make demands." She lunged forward, trying to push past me, but I stood my ground, blocking her path. Her eyes darted around the porch, landing on a bronze statue of a heron, a gift from a client gleaming in the moonlight. Before she could grab it, I stepped in front of it and shouted, "Don't even think about it!" Camille froze, her hand hovering midair, her breath ragged. She took a step back, but her gaze locked onto mine, venomous and calculating. "You'll regret this, Elise," she hissed, her voice low and menacing. "I know your secrets." The words sent a shiver down my spine, her tone dripping with a confidence I couldn't dismiss. What secrets? I had none, or so I thought. She turned to leave, but not before slipping a folded note under the doormat. I waited until her car's taillights vanished down the road before picking it up. In her jagged scrawl it read, "Watch your back." The threat lingered like a storm cloud. What could she possibly know? I'd lived cleanly, my career built on integrity, my personal life private. But Camille was manipulative, a master at twisting truths into weapons. I barely slept that night, her words looping in my mind. The next morning, I found an anonymous email in my inbox. "Your sustainable housing project? Not as original as you claim." Attached was a blurry photo of one of my blueprints, with notes suggesting I'd borrowed ideas from a rival firm. My heart sank. It was a lie. I'd spent years developing that project, but the accusation could ruin my reputation in Paris's cutthroat architectural scene. I suspected Camille was behind it, planting seeds of doubt to discredit me. Determined not to let her win, I contacted a private investigator, a discreet professional named Marcel who specialized in corporate espionage. "Find out who sent this," I told him, my voice steady but my hands shaking. While Marcel dug into the email, the online firestorm grew. My post had sparked a reckoning. Former colleagues of Camille's posted about her scams, how she'd forged contracts to secure dance gigs, how she'd manipulated promoters into funding her failed ventures. A local journalist picked up the story, linking Camille's nightclub escapades to a broader investigation into Paris's underground drug trade. The screenshot of her text about our father's influence went viral, with hashtags like #JusticeForElise trending on social media. People weren't just angry at Camille, they were questioning the system that let her skate free for so long. My father's name, once respected in police circles, was now being dragged through the mud. I felt a pang of guilt. He'd worked hard for that reputation, but it was fleeting. He'd chosen to shield Camille time and again at my expense. Camille's desperation escalated. She sent me frantic texts, alternating between fake apologies, "I'm sorry, Elise, let's talk as sisters," and thinly veiled threats. "You don't know what I'm capable of." I ignored them, but her words gnawed at me. What was she planning? The note, the email, her sudden appearance at my door, it all felt like a prelude to something bigger. Then Marcel called with news. The anonymous email traced back to a cafe in Le Marais, where security footage showed Camille using a laptop, her hoodie pulled low. She'd been working with an embittered ex-colleague of mine, Sabine, who'd lost a contract to my firm. They were trying to frame me for plagiarism, hoping to tank my career. Marcel had intercepted their communications, including a plan to leak the fake evidence to Architecture Vivante. I was furious but relieved. Marcel assured me he could discredit their scheme before it went public. Confrontation with Camille had lit a fuse, and the fallout was reshaping my world. I wasn't just fighting for my villa or my reputation, I was dismantling the lies that had propped Camille up for years. But her cryptic threat, "I know your secrets," still echoed, making me wonder if she had one last card to play. As I repainted my door, the lavender scent returning to my garden, I steeled myself for whatever came next, determined to protect the life I'd built, no matter the cost. Camille's cryptic threat, "I know your secrets," haunted me, gnawing at the edges of my sleep. What could she possibly know? My life was an open book, my career built on integrity, my designs born from years of relentless work. Yet her words, delivered with that venomous smirk, kept me awake, staring at the ceiling of my villa as moonlight filtered through the lavender-scented air. Then the anonymous messages started. They arrived in my inbox like poison darts. "Your sustainable housing project wasn't so original, was it?" One read, with a grainy photo of my blueprints, marked with accusations of borrowed ideas. Another hinted at a shady deal with a client. I knew these were lies, my work was my own, every line meticulously crafted, but in Paris's cutthroat architectural world, rumors could ruin a reputation faster than truth could repair it. Camille's fingerprints were all over this. Was she fabricating stories to sabotage me? I couldn't let her unravel everything I'd built. Determined to fight back, I hired Marcel, the private investigator, to trace the messages. Days later, he called with shocking news. Camille hadn't just vandalized my villa. She'd been in contact with Sabine Lefebvre, a rival architect who'd lost a major contract to my firm last year. Sabine, bitter and ambitious, had been feeding Camille false information about my designs, hoping to frame me for plagiarism. Camille, in turn, was trying to sell these lies to Architecture Vivante, the magazine that had just featured me. Marcel had intercepted their emails, encrypted, but not enough to evade his skills. "They plan to leak the story next week," he said, his voice grim. "But I've got enough to discredit them." Relief washed over me, but so did fury. Camille wasn't just jealous. She was orchestrating a campaign to destroy my career. I thanked Marcel and told him to keep digging. Camille wanted a war, I was ready. My parents, predictably, rallied to Camille's defense. My father called, his voice thick with anger. "Take down that post, Elise," he barked. "You're destroying your sister's reputation." I stood in my garden, the phone pressed to my ear, the scent of crushed lavender still lingering from the vandalism. "She destroyed my home," I replied, my tone cold. "She did this to herself." My mother tried a softer approach, her voice trembling through tears. "You're tearing our family apart, Elise. We're supposed to stick together." I didn't budge. Their pleas only deepened my resolve. One evening, they showed up at my villa unannounced, a lawyer in tow, a wiry man in a tailored suit clutching a folder. They sat in my living room, the tension suffocating. The lawyer slid documents across my coffee table, claiming my post was defamatory. My father, red-faced, slammed his fist down, the table cracking with a sickening snap. "You're ruining us," he roared. I met his gaze, unflinching. "No, Papa. Camille's been doing that for years." Post continued to spread, a digital tidal wave. An anonymous user posted a chat log where Camille bragged about sabotaging a rival dancer's performance by loosening her pointe shoes, costing her a lead role. Then came confirmation of the rumors. Police raided a Pigalle nightclub, arresting Camille not just for vandalizing my home but for fraud and possession of illegal substances. My father tried to pull strings, but the public outcry, fueled by my post and the viral screenshot of Camille's texts, tied his hands. She was sentenced to 4 years in prison, no parole. The scandal cost my father his pension and his standing in the police community. Whispers of his cover-ups had finally caught up. My mother, fragile as ever, started therapy, unable to cope with the fallout. A letter arrived from her weeks later, handwritten on creamy stationery. It was filled with apologies, but they felt hollow. She expressed regret for how things turned out, but sidestepped the years of neglect, the way they'd let Camille eclipse me. Camille, meanwhile, went silent after her sentencing. I didn't expect an apology, nor did I want one. I was done with her chaos. I threw myself back into my work, designing a new ecolodge in Provence and traveling to Florence for inspiration, where the Duomo's grandeur reignited my creativity. One afternoon, at a cozy cafe in Le Marais, I got a message from a dancer who'd worked with Camille. "Thank you for exposing her," it read. "She ruined my career, spreading lies to steal my spot." It hit me. I wasn't just fighting for myself, but for everyone Camille had hurt. My voice, once silenced, was now a beacon for others, and I'd never let it be dimmed again. Now I live for myself. My villa in the quiet village near Versailles is whole again, its white stone walls gleaming, the lavender garden blooming once more, its sweet scent drifting through my open windows at dusk. I'm no longer the girl who cowered in Camille's shadow, silenced by her chaos and my parents' favoritism. I found my voice, and no one, not Camille, not my family, can take it away. She may have left red paint streaked across my home, a vicious mark of her jealousy, but I've repainted my life with colors of my own choosing, bold, vibrant, and unapologetic. My designs are thriving, gracing the pages of Architecture Vivante and inspiring new projects across Europe. I've traveled to Florence, sketching under the Duomo's shadow, and I've opened my heart to new possibilities, even dipping my toes into dating again. The chaos of my family feels like a distant chapter, one I've closed to write a story that's truly mine. From this journey, I've learned 5 lessons I want to share. First, your worth isn't defined by others' approval, find it within yourself. Second, standing up to toxicity, even in family, is strength, not betrayal. Third, truth is your greatest weapon. It can dismantle lies and set you free. Fourth, protect your peace, it's worth more than appeasing others. Finally, resilience isn't about avoiding pain but rebuilding stronger from it. These lessons carried me through, and I hope they inspire you to claim your own voice. Camille's actions, her vandalism, her schemes were her downfall, not mine. The court's verdict and my parents' silence marked the end of their hold over me. I'm free now, designing a future where I shine. If my story resonates, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to my channel for more. Let's keep building lives as bold and beautiful as the spaces we dream of.